Welcome to Jaunty Haunts, the podcast about all things supernatural. After 30 years of keeping a secret, I'm finally ready to share with the world that I see ghosts. Yep, I've been having conversations with the other side while trying to keep up appearances. This podcast is all about getting spooky and connecting with others who might also sense, see, or feel things beyond the ordinary. We'll swap true tales of the seen and unseen and maybe even laugh about the weird stuff we've experienced. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, come join me as we explore the paranormal. Let's connect, share, and maybe feel a little less crazy together. Welcome to Jaunty Haunts.
Hey listeners, welcome back to Jaunty Haunts. We're taking a turn from the previous themes of demons and the devil and heading into a whole new direction. One filled with love, light, healing work, empowerment, and peace. Don't worry, there's still plenty of mystery, but today's flavor is more moonbeam than brimstone. This is Season 2, Episode 7, and I am so excited to welcome my longtime friend and radiant beam of knowledge, Lily Bennu. Lily is an intuitive, a spiritual practitioner, and an all-around galactic gem. In this episode, we'll dive into aliens, crystals, ghosts, spellwork, Reiki, and spiritual protection. Plus, we'll even touch on everyone's favorite haunted object, Annabelle the doll. She is a delight, a true fountain of wisdom, and brings so much insight and heart and magic to our chat. I think you're going to love this one. I'm going to also tag Lily's websites and all of her information where you can find her in the show notes. So please take a look at the links attached below. You can find her artwork and her websites and her Etsy page to check out a lot of the great stuff that she does and makes. So please check that out, guys. So grab your crystals, pour some tea, and get cozy as we enter into the themes of light, love, and the ever-expanding unknown secrets of the universe. This is Jaunty Haunts. The CASPER rating of this episode is 1.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the pod, coming on to Jaunty Haunts today, Lily. I wanted to bring you on because you were such a big part of my sort of new spiritual turn in Los Angeles in terms of being like, wait, there's so much more than just like Christianity and then like paganism. Like there's so much more. And going to the, meditations with you and meeting Madame Tahita and like these other folks and kind of like, and crystals especially, you were so knowledgeable about crystals. Yeah. Are you still into crystals? Yeah.
I was giving my boyfriend a whole bunch. He actually really loves them.
Good.
And I pulled him out of his pocket. He's like, I have this one today. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
I still have this big selenite that you gave me that was this big and then like got in half eventually. Like it got broken. But you like did a healing on it and like now it's like by my bed.
Oh, good.
And I have the amethyst you gave me too after my car accident right here. Can you, for the listeners, just sort of introduce yourself, who you are, and what you believe about the paranormal?
Yeah, so I'm Lily Bennu. As Courtney had said, I've been on a spiritual journey for over a decade now, at least, and just had all kinds of different experiences with spirituality or supernatural or paranormal. I believe just about almost anything from Bigfoot to vampires to ghosts to aliens, whatever it is. I'm gonna be like, there's some kind of proof for it, Things are happening in the world. Life is crazier than we know. So yeah, I'm pretty accepting of it all.
I love that. Yeah, I forgot that you were the first person to really talk to me about the Greys, the aliens. And I remember like going over to, we went over to Gabby's house and Gabby had the big poster of the Grey on her wall. And I was like, oh, I don't like those. And you're like, Courtney, what do you know about the Greys? And I was like, I've seen the Greys. And then during my car accident, I've told this story on the pod, but I like was really high on Percocet, obviously. But I had either
a real life experience or a drug trip where like the tiny gray came in through my window and was like on the dresser, and I was like, get out of here, and then it left, and I told you about that, and you were like, Courtney, stop calling in the grays. And I was like, I don't remember calling in the grays, Lily.
That's a thing, you're susceptible from being so high and stuff. So, it's
Right.
easy for them to just kind of slink in.
Yeah. And I guess what I don't remember as much,
Mhm.
or let me talk more about the things I do remember, is why they were scary, because of what you told me was that they are so interested in humans because of human emotion and human feeling, because they don't understand it. And the reason why they experiment and are fascinated with humans is because they're essentially like psychopaths in the way that they don't have any sort of emotions or feelings or empathy for each other, which is why they can be kind of like a huge problem, because they don't understand that. Is that true?
What it comes down to is for a very long time, they have not had access to their own souls. So that's why humans, we're very soulful things, whether good or bad or whatever. We just have a spirit within us where they necessarily don't anymore.
Mm,
So they're trying to reactivate their own spirit. So, but just not obviously in healthy ways, kidnapping people and crossbreeding and whatever else
yeah.
um, is not a good way. Sometimes it is effective. So, that's why they've been doing it for so long. But yeah, they're just literally, as we are beings with a soul, when we perish, we reincarnate or whatever it is you want to believe afterwards.
Yeah.
Since they don't have that, when they die, they cease to exist completely, which is a very terrifying thought.
Right.
So they're just, it's a survival thing. They're trying to preserve themselves. So, and at this point, it's kind of by any means necessary.
Yikes. Okay. That's cool though. Thanks for explaining that. Yeah.
Hmm.
The grays. And then are there, I guess, other alien life forms that you feel confident, or that you've had experience, like like, oh, also there's definitely XYZ. Are there other alien life forms you're aware of?
Yeah, in the spiritual community, it's just what people call a star seed. So, like
Mm.
Pleiadians,
Mm-hmm.
Andromedans, Arcturians, Syrians, not people from Syria, but beings from Sirius,
Okay.
the star system. So, yeah, all of those. I've heard people talk about beings from Venus,
Interesting.
Martians, which, Venus and Mars are our neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you hear people talk about like reptilians or bad reptile beings and stuff,
Right.
probably a Martian.
Interesting. Okay. And when it comes to, sorry, you brought up starseed. I'm glad, because I've heard so much crazy stuff about this idea of starseed, especially that's
Hmm.
been like gentrified by like a lot of like white women being like, I'm a
Hmm.
starseed, I'm a magical being of light, and da 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 da. And I felt like a kind of an ick with that, of like, I
Hmm.
feel like maybe that's not a thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I also know so much of this woo stuff is so based on like
Hmm.
what we kind of believe, or what makes us feel connected. So it's hard, like, without being judgmental. But I have heard also
Hmm.
some like anti-Semitic and Nazi kind of rhetoric attached to the starseed
Really?
stuff, of it being like it's about having a pure race, having all white. Like if you have really light skin, really light
Hmm.
eyes, really blonde hair, that's a trait of a star seed. And being like, oh, well, that's kind of
Well, let me
weird.
address that directly
Yeah, thank
because
you.
there is some truth to that. So
Interesting.
Pleiadians are beings who are they look very much like humans. So they're supposed to be like 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot tall,
Uh-huh.
blonde hair, blue eyed, and what we would call white skinned.
Okay.
And so there's this thing in spirituality where like Pleiadians are put above all other beings, and
Hmm.
it is connected to straight up just racism and a,
Right.
superiority complex. There is, as many galaxies as there is in the universe, there's that many, star beings. There's all kinds of things. Fish people, cat people, look at the Egyptians, frog headed
Right.
lady, snake headed lady. it's all kinds of creatures out in the universe. So these white people from the Pleiades are not the, end all be all of spirituality and, all of that.
Yeah.
So you are true about that. That is an issue, especially within an American context. Everything gets co
Right.
opted by white supremacy eventually, whether or not
Yeah.
it wants to be.
Right.
But so yeah, yes, Palladians supposedly do look white, what we would call white or Caucasian. They're obviously not because they're not from the
This
earth.
planet, right? Okay, yeah.
But yeah, but there's much more interesting aliens and beings and stuff out in the universe. The Palladians are not the end all be all to spirituality. They're the newest kind of evolved life form before us. And
Uh-huh.
so with that, we have a life keeps being created until it gets perfected. That's just what
Right.
evolution is. So a lot of the issues we have on earth is stuff that they did not process out in their spiritual evolution. So we're the spiritual inheritors of their
Okay.
garbage karma, which involves racism and
Yeah.
wars and all kinds of terrible stuff. So yeah,
Okay.
people, they're like, oh, yeah, the Pleiadians. I'm like, little do you know they're the reason we're in such shit on this planet sometimes.
It's always the whites, damn it.
Where you
Thank
have
you.
like the serious beings who are like, the Egyptians, dog head, cat head, whatever,
Birdhead,
from
right? That's
Sirius,
one.
yeah, or
Okay.
just straight up dark blue, and people don't want to talk about them.
I
That's
haven't
like,
heard a
they're
lot about
cool.
that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Hmm.
I remember when you and Gabby and I would hang out too, there was definitely a fascination on an emphasis on Egyptian spirits and culture.
I'm
And
going
that
to
was
Egypt this year.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah.
A little bit of vacation, a little bit of spiritual journey stuff. Is that kind of the vibe?
Yeah, it's going to be an 11-day spiritual pilgrimage with this lady. She's a
Oh my
black
God.
lady from America, but she's been living in Africa, I think, over a decade at least.
Wow. When are you going?
Yeah. October, the first 2 weeks of October.
Oh my God. That's going to be so sick. Oh, we got to have you on after to hear about your pilgrimage. That's
Yes,
so
to hear
sick.
about everything. Yeah.
You're going to come back a whole new person.
I'm like, oh, Courtney, I'm glowing now.
You're like, I'm telepathic now.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for sharing your insight into that kind of stuff, because it's just like all of this in this community, right, of like spiritualism and woo-woo. It's so easy for anyone with not very pure intention to push the boundary on things, and it can easily be racism or xenophobia or things like that are like very scary. And so I appreciate you shedding your light on that, because I was like, I feel like people are using this in the wrong way, and it's so easy to do.
And one more thing.
Yeah,
the
please.
reason why the Pleiadians are connected to Nazism is actually because supposedly, even like they talk about this on Ancient Aliens, they were doing a lot of weird stuff besides, unfortunately, like killing and burning people and stuff.
Right.
A lot of experimentation and weird science was happening.
Yes.
And so supposedly some technology and stuff that they got came from the Pleiadians.
Wow.
That's where that connection comes from.
Interesting. So there was, in some schools of thought, there was potentially some alien interference with the Holocaust.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, I don't know necessarily about the human aspect of it, but,
sure,
the science experimentation and stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, evil stuff, man. Weird stuff.
I know.
Okay, cool. I've got some questions for you about your sort of personal path and practice. These questions are sort of in relation to all things in regards to Reiki masters, light workers, magical practitioners, crystal enthusiasts, healers, anyone who does any sort of energy work. So if you don't connect exactly with these questions, we can just move on. But the first question I have here is, what first led you to explore energy work, spiritual healing, and how has your path evolved since then?
Yeah, so where I lived in LA in Tarzana, I lived like 2 blocks down the street from my school, or the college I was going to at the time, Columbia College of Hollywood, which I learned does not exist anymore, and it fused with like Arizona State University or something.
What? That's
Yeah, I was like,
crazy.
where are my transcripts? But I got them.
Okay, good.
But when they still were over on Oxnard and Reseda, so how the classes worked, it was 9 to 1, 2 to 6, and then 7 to 11. So I think this was during one of my semesters where I had like a 9 to 1 class and a 7 to 11 class on the same day. So I just had like a hideous amount of time in the day to just like loaf around and whatever.
Yeah.
And so down the street on Ventura and Reseda was a Starbucks. So, I would just go there, get or whatever I'd get, and then, go on home or go hang out at school. And so every time I went to this Starbucks, I would pass a place with all these rocks in the window and statues and whatever else. And I was just like, what is this place? Like what? So finally I went in there, and it's a place where we did the meditations and everything, the Imagine Center. And so that's how it all started. I left with a couple crystals, and who knows, hundreds of crystals later. Yeah, that was the start of my spiritual journey. And so, actually, during the pandemic, the Imagine Center it doesn't exist anymore now. God Sahita closed it down. She actually she moved out east. She's on the East Coast now. So I was like, no, who's gonna do meditations now?
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of weird. I'm in a very weird space in my spiritual journey where it's hard to receive now. I'm kind of more just in the giving space because it's harder to find people at a spiritual level higher than me to be able to receive.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, once Goddess Sahita kind of exited out of my life as that kind of capacity as a spiritual mentor, someone else did come in. But like I don't have, a place to go to do, meditations every Sunday and stuff like that. So I have to kind of just coordinate all that for myself now.
Okay.
And I'd say that's what my biggest change is.
Yeah, a bit of maybe more isolation, a bit of stagnation because it's trying to find new community maybe.
Yeah.
I see. Thank you for sharing.
In LA, woo-woo stuff is very
everywhere.
easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Bloomington, Indiana, only so much.
Yeah. The corn is your guide.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Okay, great. My next question is, do you remember a moment when you first realized there was something more than we see with our physical eye?
I would say probably my earliest moment is when I was in church. My mom used to be a very traditional preacher and in traditional church, and now she's like a part of a hippie, kind of more hippie church, Unity, which is just about practical Christianity and doing what Christ did, which is being a loving person and not all the dogma and all that stuff.
Right.
But I was pretty young, I would say under 7 years old, and we were in church, and whoever was speaking was like, and you'll be in heaven, and you'll just sing the praises of God for all eternity. And literally, as a little kid, I got sick to my stomach. I was like, I don't want to do that forever. I was like, that sounds terrible. Yeah, and I was like, there has to be something more. You might like you die, and then you're just like in a choir standing for all eternity singing. I was like, that sounds kind of terrible. Maybe I'm lazy. Maybe they said sitting for all eternity singing. Maybe I would have been more accepting. Yeah, I just like, as a kid, I really it scared me. I was like, I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
And so even as a little kid, I was always interested in like mermaids and vampires and, stuff like that. So I always had an interest in the occult from at least a fictional standpoint. And then, I don't know, I even think about like when I was in high school watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is an incredibly spiritual show. They have a whole episode on chakras that's 100% accurate on what the chakras are, what their detriment is, how to heal them. I watched that back when I was an adult. I'm like, it was putting us on game. It was teaching us.
Honestly, that show's so good. I watch it like once every 2 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, literally. So it's just always been something within me, to where I just believed in, other kind of spiritual practices. I was always interested in, mythical things and mysticism. I think it's just part of me naturally.
That's great. Yeah. I love too that the moment wasn't like a specific memory of like seeing a ghost. I love so much that it was like a moment of recognition of like, wait, no, there's gotta be. Yeah. I that's just such a cool moment that you remember that. Yeah. And the idea of like,
Hmm.
that sounds so boring. Like the idea of heaven being like, it's everything you should want, and being like, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
um okay, cool. Well, this is a very woo-woo question, but I feel like if anyone's
Hmm.
gonna have a cool answer, you probably will. But how would you describe your relationship with energy, how it moves, communicates, or transforms?
Hmm. Yeah. So in my train of thought, everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just at different levels of density. And so, with that, I'm really careful about the things I choose to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
For music, for example, music is it's pure energy. It's literally something that came from utterly nothing, just a bunch of noises put together that
Wow.
ended up in a song. Like
Yeah.
music is the ultimate level of creation.
Yeah.
You know, it literally you just make something out of nothing. It's insane.
Yeah.
And so I'm very specific about the music I listen to. I
Okay.
don't listen to anything, violent or whatever. Here come my boyfriend want to listen to all his Oakland rock music. And the struggle, and then I have to shoot somebody. I'm like, please turn this off. Stop. I don't want this in my energy field. So
Yeah.
I might sound uppity, but it's something that's really important to me. Even when I
Yeah.
was younger, I listened to metal all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because being raised Christian, all I could listen to up until I was like 10 years old was classical music or jazz. And I
Wow.
played instruments.
Okay.
So I had a very musical mind. So, I liked certain things. I'd argue with my mom. She liked Mozart. I liked Beethoven.
Yeah.
So when I got older and I could listen to whatever music I want, that translated into electronic music and metal because they're both basically new age classical music. It's
Interesting.
instrumental. There's a bunch of like,
Yeah.
there's all these
That's
different
true.
components. I can't listen to metal, like I used to anymore.
Yeah.
It's really disruptive to my energetic system. It just
Interesting.
is.
Yeah.
So energy literally is everything. It's the people you interact with, it's the physical environment. It's literally everything. That's why at work I got crystals. Crystals each have their own little energy signature and they can help influence your energy. So crystals at work, crystals by my bedside, crystals for the boyfriend, crystals for the car,
Yeah.
Just I try to influence my energy to what I want for what's best for me, for whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, energy is everything. And more people need to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good point with the music. My God. Like sometimes I just think it's like a neurodivergent thing or something going on in my brain because some people can play like I work as a florist, I mentioned, and half of the business I'm in is a cafe. So it's like a cafe on one side and then the flower bar on the other side. And the baristas will literally play heavy metal like screamo music. And I cannot do the job. Like I literally have to go over and be like, you guys, this is a cafe where people are trying to wake up, have coffee, buy gifts for people. Yeah, like this music is crazy, and they're like, what, you don't like so and so? I'm like, it doesn't even matter. Like I might personally enjoy this band or this music, but like you have to set the tone. It literally like you just said, it changes the energy completely when there is jazz playing or Frank Sinatra or what, like whatever. Like so yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point.
And that kind of music, even though, I love my emo bands, my Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, As I Lay Dying, whatever.
Oh yeah.
That stuff is so terrible for plants.
Really?
you need to tell them y'all are killing the damn flowers. Because
Oh my
literally,
God. Wait, Lily, wait, that's crazy because there's one spot in the store that the plants always die there. And we thought it was because it was the AC or like the sunlight. And we're like, why? But the
mm-hmm.
ones around, okay, it's next to the speaker.
Oh
Bro,
no.
that's actually crazy. Wait, that's so funny. Oh my God, I have to tell them. That's a great point. Y'all are
You
killing the
do, you like,
plants.
listen, y'all are killing the damn plants. Because, plants are literally like water and earth into a physical thing.
Yeah.
And earth grounds, so it'll ground and keep energy, and water amplifies, it'll amplify the energy. So if they're
Okay.
playing, whatever, it's holding in that harsh energy and amplifying it because of the water. And then so that's going to
Wow.
negatively affect the plant.
Oh my God. This is yeah, this is rocking my world right now. And it's so funny too because the amount of customers or people that I get like weekly
Hmm.
who come in with their dead plants and they're like,
Mm.
"Hey, like I bought this here 3 months ago and it's dead. What can you do for me?" And it's like
Hmm.
I don't know how to explain like cuz it's such a woo-woo thing, right? Like I think it just died for you. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
did you water it? Did you put it in the right
Yeah.
area? Did you fertilize it? Yeah, I did everything right. It's like, okay, well, sometimes plants just take an energetic hit, like they really do. And there's no
And
explaining
a
that to
lot of
people.
plants actually are used for protection. Where if
Yes.
like you buy a plant, it literally works for you as an energy buffer. And
Yeah.
this is not to shame anyone, but everyone's life is so stressful. Just
Yeah.
everyone's life in this country. So you're coming home with most people are coming home with unconscious, subconscious stress.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plant job is to help ground that energy. But because it's not physically in the earth to where it can disperse that back to the earth to get transmuted, it stays within that pot. If it
Yeah.
doesn't have a
Oh,
way to
wow.
release it, it's just going to literally kill the plant.
That's a great point of why it kind of self implodes because it doesn't have any connection to anything else to help it. To
Yeah.
help it. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. That's a really, yeah, again, really insightful information about energy.
Yeah.
um Oh, this is cool. Okay, yeah. So for those unfamiliar with your practice or what you practice, what is one
Mhm.
misconception that you'd love to clear up in terms of spiritualism or crystal work, anything like that?
None of that stuff is evil,
I
just first and
yes.
foremost. So, real talk. So, like I said, my mom, she's an ordained minister. She got her master in theology. She knows the Bible and all that stuff. It is crystals in the Bible, it is spell work in the Bible, blood magic in the Bible. That's what communion is.
Yes.
Communion is a literal blood ritual.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, so,
You're drinking
now
blood.
you're like drinking the blood of he's not dead, but you're drinking the blood of a guy who died.
Yeah.
That is creepy and weird.
Yeah.
If you want to get into that, we can get into that, but we'll pause that thought. But the point is that, you can't, people cannot say that stuff is evil when they do it for themselves and their God and it's okay. But
Yeah.
then you do it for your God or nature or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's evil.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, nothing is evil, you know?
Mhm.
There's a show that was on Disney called Star versus the Forces of Evil, and it was a
Okay.
girl from a magical kingdom that had a matriarchy. So she was actually the next to lead in line after her queen magic mother. And so it's a line of all these different magical women, and of course, like way at the top of the line, there was like the dark queen, and she did the dark magic, right?
Yeah.
And so she was actually still alive in some tower or something and got loose or whatever. But she says to Star, and I loved this. I was watching the show as an adult, by the way. I'm an adult
Nothing
that
wrong with
watches
that.
cartoons.
I do
But
too.
yes, and she says to Star, all knowledge is good knowledge. And that is true. There is no such thing as a good knowledge or an evil knowledge. All knowledge is good
Wow.
knowledge. What people choose to do with it is when it become bad or good,
Wow. Yeah. I love that.
you
Yeah.
know? So That's just first and foremost. All this stuff you do, it's not evil, it's very neutral. Then what you decide to do with it is where that comes in, your intentionality. I
Mm-hmm.
just like to say, every crystal work, plant working with the cycles of the moon. This is all just stuff people did for centuries because literally nature is
Yeah.
the only thing we have.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
And a
I
belief
believe,
system. Yeah.
yeah, I believe in different sky daddies. Being Egyptian, Father Ra is my sky daddy
Yeah.
because we need the sun, right? We all need the sun to live.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to gravitate towards him. I don't know about certain other sky daddies. Zeus, we don't need thunder and lightning. Get out of here. Keep
For
your thoughts to
vibes,
yourself.
Lily. We need it for vibes.
No, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, like, so people could be like, oh, this is evil. So much of spirituality is literally just like working with nature. That's not
Yes.
evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, oh, I know the cycle of the moon. I know the cycle of the sun. I recognize the seasons, and this is the best time. First, that's like I said, all of this is in the Bible. To every season, turn, a time to plant, a time to whatever. Yeah, that's a song, but it's from the Bible. It's those actual Bible verses.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff is within a lot of religion that says it's bad. It's a lot of it is coded so people don't understand it's an allegory and a metaphor. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is you're doing, I get, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel you gotta hide it. You like rocks, and the rocks, even if it's just a placebo effect, you
Right.
have the rocks and it makes you believe in yourself, whether or not it actually affects you energetically. That's a good thing.
Yes. Thank that. Beautifully said. All of that beautifully said. I completely agree, and I think those are very wise words. And I love the oh my gosh, words. Sorry, the lines from the show. I love that of
Yeah,
all
all
knowledge
knowledge is good
is good
knowledge.
knowledge. That's a great way of putting that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here if you don't mind, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what was so hard, like leaving LA, getting to the East Coast and
Mm-hmm.
being like, I don't feel like I'm like a pagan witch, but I also don't necessarily agree that I'm a term like with the word light worker. Like I don't know where I fall
Mm.
into things. I don't know what this is because I do feel an extreme balance of dark and light because I see it in the world
Mm.
around me, and I feel like it's hard to banish or like try to deflect so much of what doesn't seem to be like high vibrationally. Like sometimes low vibrations are good. Like sometimes it's I just feel like at the end of the day, I think what I'm connecting with most spiritually is like it's all nature. Like it's all
Mm-hmm.
everything has a balance, and
Yeah.
I, instead of thinking of like I have a power and I can wield it, it's more like how do I embrace the nature and energy around me to feel my
Mm.
best and help others around me feel and be their best.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I'm still working through what I really believe in, but I only know that I see ghosts and I'm trying to figure out how to help them, and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is all a journey. It's all a
Mm.
journey, right?
Okay, so is that what's going on, Courtney? You've been seeing more ghosts?
Yeah, yeah. Since I moved to the East Coast,
Mm. Well,
um,
first of all, the East Coast is
it's
as haunted
haunted
as
as
it gets.
fuck, right? Yeah, yeah. No, it's haunted as fuck, Lily. Like I've been seeing ghosts. I mean, a lot, and I think
Hmm.
you and Gabby were the first people I really. Sorry, there's a fly in here. Get out of here, fly. It's been being a nosy fly. I'm not into it. Get out of here. Um, but yeah, you and Gabby were some of the first people in my adult life that I opened up to because I remember because I was at work and Gabby looked at me and
Mm.
was like, "You're like connected to something, right?" And I was like,
Mm.
"What do you mean?" And Gabby, with all her crazy powers, was like, "No, you're like something's going on." And then I remember the day I met you, and you were like, "Oh, you're the one Gabby told me about." And yeah, we like hung out, and I was like, "All right, like I'll tell you, like I see stuff, I have dreams, they come true, blah blah blah." But yeah, you that's part of why I really wanted to have you on, because you're one of the first like
Hmm.
people in my adult life I was kind of open and honest with about what I had gone on. And I think at the time I told you, like, here's what I have seen.
Hmm.
Since then, since moving on, since starting this sort of journey, and since moving to the East Coast especially, I'm seeing shit all the time.
Hmm. Well, after our podcast, we can talk a little bit about what's going on with that. But um, just to give you some more, personal tips and maybe a
Yeah,
person to talk to.
sure.
But what's going on in general is, and even connected into what you said about, am I a light worker? Am I a this? Am I a that? You know, Even I don't like to use those terms for myself, to be honest, because,
Right.
it's like it comes with a set of
Expectation.
definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I want to be Beyonce. I want to do all the
Right.
genres on one
Yes.
album, and no
Yeah.
one can tell me anything. So I just say
100%.
that I just say that I'm
Spiritual.
spiritual because
Yeah.
even the term light worker, as you said, like, right, it denounces darkness.
Yeah.
Um, for Mother's Day, so that my mom didn't have to do the message, I did the message for Mother's Day.
Oh,
And I talked about the divine feminine archetypes.
love.
So, we know the divine masculine archetypes: create, preserve, destroy. You're either left or you're right, you know,
Right.
binary thinking.
Yes.
Where divine feminine archetypes have nothing like that. Everything is a cycle, right? A circle, something that goes on forever and ever,
Uh-huh.
which might sound bad, but it's like, there's infinite points on those circles. So at one point on the circle, you could be higher,
Right.
in the spiral, or, like, just options. And so, anyways, when I made a list of 13, and one of the archetypes on that list is darkness.
Mm.
Darkness is not bad or evil, it's just darkness,
Yeah.
Without darkness, there cannot be light.
Right. Yeah.
And in so many creation stories, even in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
How does the world start out, right? From the Bible to the Nag Hammadi to the Enuma Elish to some Indian creation stories to some Chinese creation stories and even some Native American creation stories.
Mm-hmm.
The world starts out in complete and utter darkness.
Wow.
They'll say there's a darkness or there is dark waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dark waters precede everything. They precede God itself. They precede light. They precede the earth. They precede humans. Everything comes from a dark waters. And the dark waters is always feminine.
Wow.
Right? So this kind of
I
puts
just
some
got
things
chills.
into context.
Oh my gosh, wait.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because now everything, we have the exact opposite of that, right? We always want the white father. We want the white father's approval, literally, metaphorically, and everything.
Right.
It's because there's a dampening of where the truth of everything comes from.
The dark
Some
feminine.
people might listen to this and get upset. Where did life on the planet start? Africa,
Mm-hmm.
right? They have in science, there's that, African lady, they proved all genes come from her, whoever she was. I can't, remember her name off the top of it.
Right.
All, even me as a black lady, I can give birth to a white child, a child with Asiatic features, because technically I have all of the capacity to have all those genes.
Right.
Right? Even from Africa, where did we all come from before that? The ocean. When the world was Pangea, we was all, and then someone was like, I have a leg, and went on to the land, and then humans, and, that's like a condensed version of it. But,
Yeah.
So everything comes from blackness, everything comes from water, and that's always had a feminine association. So it's okay to not want to be a light worker because you need darkness. Darkness is just a regular thing. You have the daytime, you have the nighttime.
Right.
Neither is worse than the other.
Yeah. They just are. Like, they just are,
Exactly.
And they're not evil.
So,
like, one is not more morally more good or bad than the other, right? Like,
yeah.
Thanks for saying that. That's
so
I don't know why.
So much. Yeah, there's so many things, Courtney, that have a negative connotation now
Yeah.
because of traditional religion and patriarchal mindsets,
Right.
where one, it's just something connected to nature, and a lot of it is connected to, some kind of hidden aspect of divine femininity.
Yeah.
So, I say, oh, I'm a witch, I'm a light worker, I'm a this,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter
Right.
as long as
All
you're just
terms are
being you.
acceptable as long as you're confident or comfortable in what you know.
Yeah.
It only matters for how you feel. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. On another interview, I said this recently. Someone was talking about
Hmm.
who's from LA was talking about, like, living in high vibrations, creating high vibrations, and all this stuff. And I said to them, I said, one time you told me like I'm a very low vibrational person, and
Mm.
I don't know like what you meant by that. And people will say like, oh, the vibrations are low, we got to raise them up and all this stuff. And I was like, I think I do just vibrate on a lower frequency, but I think it's
Mm.
like everything. Like some things are low, some things are high, and I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't know. What do you think about that?
I can understand what that person is saying.
Uh-huh.
Once again, you're a very unique person, Courtney. They're the people and the women especially who come to wear pink and be in the high vibrations and
Yes.
that kind of stuff. Then there are some of us who do come to be in a lower vibration. Lower vibration doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, it just means a lower vibration.
Yeah.
Lower vibrations are what the earth is naturally attuned to,
Mm.
right? So we have to get into that. So much of the earth has been bastardized.
Yeah.
Think of animals, right? We say like dog ears and cat ears.
Uh-huh.
The earth exists. So first of all, we have to say time is relative, right? Because here I am in my one human day, and it's like what, 3 days for a cat, or however that
That's
works.
very true. That's interesting. Yeah.
So time is relative, and the earth is on a much slower frequency than humans, which is the only reason why humans have a power over the earth. That's what it means in the Bible when it said, and then God gave man dominion over the earth. It's literally like a kind of like a time power. We're able
Mm-hmm.
to move quicker than the earth can react,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a good thing. So you have people, I would say like you, like me, who can go into a lower vibration.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. That just
Sure.
means being able to slow down, being able to space out. In spirituality, they tell you want to go high and you want to go vertical.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go up, just up. You know, Sometimes it's good to see the whole horizon, to be able to be like that,
Yeah.
to be able to be slow. Um, and I'll be honest, especially if you're saying you're seeing ghosts and just knowing some of your past stuff, there's people who we have to learn how to be comfortable in darkness because there's so
Yes.
much darkness in the world. And you
Yeah.
can't ever heal it, deal with it, whatever, if you're just avoiding it the whole time,
Right. Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So people they say, a low vibration and it does have a negative connotation to it. But I think that's just another thing of having a kind of superiority kind of mindset and a
Sure.
complex. Because once again, we need people to be slower. We need people to be sometimes at a lower frequency,
Yeah.
because not everyone is up there, and that's okay. And there's stuff that's still able to happen in those lower vibrations.
Yes. I really appreciate what you're saying. And I think weirdly enough, it's been something like that's been a bit of anxiety thinking of moving back to the
Mm.
West Coast, because it's been something really cool on the East Coast to be like, I've kind of found some darkness and empowerment in being kind of like darker, especially when it came to starting and making this podcast, and to talk and learn from people about what they believe and hear
Hmm.
their experiences. And I don't want to say this in like an arrogant or a cocky way, but like I don't feel afraid anymore when I hear about things or when I
Mm.
see things anymore. I don't see things and jump. It can be jarring sometimes to see spirit, right? Because
Hmm.
depending on what version of themselves they show me, it can be
Yeah.
jarring. But overall, it's like this thing where I feel like I meet the other side, or I meet the darkness with a sense of um, you know, I guess I don't know the right word yet, but it's more introspective.
I would say compassion.
Yeah, that's a great word. Like compassion. Like, hey, what do you need? I'll try to help you if I can. I don't know if I can though. And overall, like, I have my boundaries, I have my space, but like, I also know, just like nature, like if you see a bird or a bear or a coyote, they're out in the wild. That's their space. I'm not going to try to get them out of their space. Just like if I see a spirit in a house that's not mine, or I see a ghost in the subway system, it's like, you know, I've had critique of people telling me, like, you need to be clearing these spirits. And it's like, if they're not asking me for help, I'm not going to do it, you know? And maybe that's something I need to correct or learn or change. But overall, it's like, I just feel like everything is on its own time, and I only want to help. Does that make sense? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's an anime show called Bleach. It's been on since we were like in middle school.
Okay.
And the beginning part of it is Ichigo, the main character, he could see ghosts, and he ends up getting powers where he can like help them move on and whatever.
Oh, really? How have I not heard of this?
Yeah. And so, you know, they don't always immediately try to transfer a spirit to the next realm when they see one. Sometimes they just observe the spirit, you know, oh, this one's fine. It's not gonna, you know, it's not in any danger of turning, whatever. Because, of course, you know, they have like, you know, spirits who become hurt and they become like the monsters of the show.
Okay.
Which they also don't kill. They purify them so that they can have a chance to go on.
Wow. Okay.
But so it's very funny. I was actually thinking about this since I knew I was going to talk to you. Just even the concept of ghost, right?
Yes.
You know, when you die, you're supposed to go on, and that's that.
Right.
Technically, ghosts should not exist, but they do.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what is a ghost?
Right.
And I don't think there's a single definition for that.
100%.
I think there are some people who truly, you know, we'll say like something bad happens to them and they get confused because they're murdered or whatever.
Sure.
And you know, there's such an emotional bond where they can't leave a space. And that is bad. That's something that, you know, that person's soul does not deserve that. And it's not a thing of we need to punish you and get rid of you. It's like we really need to help this thing move past this terrible moment.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are some ghosts, you know, as I said before, everything is energy. Everything leaves an energetic imprint.
Yeah.
So some things, you know, you're in a routine and you do the same thing over and over again, or, you know, so and then you go on. I think there are some ghosts where that spirit has been long gone, and it's more so an energetic imprint of what they did in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost like what some people would say, like a time loop or something like that.
Like a time loop, exactly. Or just like a video of them and what they did. You know, so this idea of clearing ghosts even, you know, comes back to that kind of superiority complex of, well, I know what I'm doing and I know better than the ghost.
Yes,
you
girl.
know?
Yes. Thank you for saying that. That's literally what I thought too. I was like, who am I to feel like I know better than a spirit, right? Like, and I understand if it looks lost or confused and maybe potentially might need help, but even then, like, this sounds so woo-woo, but like we're in it, right? Like, who am I to break their soul cycle of what they could potentially be learning or like repaying for?
Exactly.
Or what happened, you know, like, who am I, even with an ability to see and communicate, to go interrupt the journey that spirit is on? If they're fully capable of coming up and speaking with me or showing themselves to me and showing me that like they need help, absolutely. Like, let's make something happen. But it feels wrong to disturb a spirit or a ghost or something that isn't asking me or communicating with me, you know? And I'm so happy you just said that, because I am hearing like from people close to me in my life, like, man, you really got to help them. And it's like, anyway, I'll stop talking about myself, but thank you for saying that. And does that like make sense? You know,
it does, because this, you know, humans have such an arrogance about them all the time.
Right.
It's just, you know, we're humans. We're the only one with thumbs, and you know, we're a spirit.
Yeah.
You know, it could be that spirit's spiritual journey that they are a ghost for a while, and then they decide to release themselves.
Right. Oh, hey there, listeners. Courtney here with Jaunty Hans. Sorry to interrupt this paid programming, JK, this programming, to recommend some podcasts that you should listen to and that you should check out. These are creators who I have done some interviews with and spoken with, and their shows are awesome. So, first show is the Red Treehouse podcast. This is your official invitation to join Will in the Red Treehouse, where he'll tell you the creepiest, eeriest, and most terrifying tales to keep you up at night. And along the way, you'll be challenged to consider what you believe. Does the paranormal and supernatural really exist, or is it a figment of an overactive imagination? I mean, we know what I think, but episodes release twice each week and can be found wherever you stream podcasts. It's a scary world out there. Let's explore it together in the Red Treehouse. So guys, check out the Red Treehouse podcast. Another one is Arcane Carolinas. Check out Arcane Carolinas for an informed but fun-spirited look at the verifiable history and science behind stories about ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and plain old weird stuff. Their research methods have turned up enough surprising information about the origins of lore that the Arcane Carolinas books have been preserved in state archival libraries. Arcane Carolinas is available on all major podcast services. Do you question reality? Are you drawn to UFOs, time slips, premonitions, or the mysteries of consciousness? Then you need to check out the Close Encounters Club podcast. Hosted by Justin Gearhart, a skeptic with an open mind, Close Encounter Club features real people sharing their encounters with the unexplainable. He's joined by his producer Josh, chiming in from Australia with his own curious takes. They also bring on scientists and experts who are actually trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So, if you've ever stared at the sky and felt like something was staring back, this one's for you. Search Close Encounter Club wherever you get your podcasts. Tell them Jaunty sent you. Another one to check out is Opening Kill. Opening Kill is the new podcast that covers the terrifying world of horror films. From the latest movie news to an in-depth look at a featured film and a peek at the chilling horror films to come, Opening Kill has you covered. Whether it's gore, suspense, or supernatural thrills, Opening Kill is the ultimate horror deep dive. Hosted by Brian O'Connor and Michael Duran. Listen to Opening Kill on your favorite podcast platform every Thursday. And also Believing in the Bizarre podcast. Also, guys, Hidden in the Shadows podcast, another great one. And just for funsies, just to shout it out there, maybe they'll hear one day, maybe I'll meet them, I don't know. My favorite all-time fun, spooky paranormal podcasts are, of course, Spooked by Snap Judgment, A Funny Feeling podcast with Betsy and Marcy, and Ghosted by Roz Hernandez. So just some fun recommendations for you guys. I love to boost and promote other podcasts that I resonate with. If you want a shout out, please reach out. I'd love to spread the word. Anyway, back to the show.
You know, we don't know everyone's spiritual journey, and being a human and being a spirit is a very complex thing.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, you don't have to go around. So in that show I told you about Bleach, there was a guy who could also see spirits, and he would like mess with them and stuff, not understanding what they were. And so he was like accelerating people, you know, spirits that didn't need to go on yet. He was like accelerating and agitating them, and then they became the monsters. You know, so sometimes you create a problem that didn't exist before because you're trying to force something to go and it's not its time.
Oh my God. Yes.
You know?
Okay. Can I tell you a quick story about that?
Absolutely.
So the apartment we live in currently, it's haunted, right? We've talked about it. I mean, it was. The building is haunted. Our unit now feels good. It took a lot of time. But immediately upon move-in, the spirit of the previous tenant was here, a man. And he died, I think, in a semi-accidental violent way. And I think he also had Alzheimer's and or dementia. And there is currently like a huge blood spot on the wood floor in our front room that's like soaked through the wood. We can't clean it. It is what it is, right? And like none of us knew what it is. So what I've picked up in my woo-woo spiritual journey is that he was lost, he was confused, something happened. I think he fell. I think he hit his head, and I think he died. Yeah. So not only that, but I think he was also queer in some way. And I think there was a large part of him that had this like feminine energy. And his brother was Catholic. They donated a lot of money to the church down the street. We found out like through talking with them and through paperwork. And so I was like, this is going to be kind of a journey to like help his spirit move on, especially because he passed from Alzheimer's and dementia. He's very confused. He would stand at the end of our bed at night and look at us and go,
like, why are you in my bed?
Yeah, why exactly? And I would say like, we live here now. Like out loud, I'd say, we live here now. Please go to the living room. And he'd be like, the kids are moving in? And I would say, yep, the kids are moving in. And he'd go, okay. And then he'd come back in a couple hours later. Like it was just this whole thing. And anyway, my mother-in-law, she also knew that the apartment was haunted. So she called and contacted some sort of spiritual worker who we had no interest with. And they started doing work to clear the space without like without our permission, without knowing what was truly happening. And things got so bad so fast. And it was everything you said. It was like accelerating things and almost turning things into a monster to the point where like things were falling off shelves. Things were bad. There was like a darkness in the corners and in the hallway. And like, it was like, whoa. And I like literally had to tell them like, whatever you're doing, stop now. Like, stop.
Yeah.
This is not good. And like, this is our home. Like, we have to figure this out. So I almost had to like reverse the work that they did and then take like it took about 6.5 months to finally help William connect with his sibling who had passed away and help him to the other side. But bro, like it's so funny. It's exactly what you said from this cartoon of like, you're doing too much. Like it's not supposed to happen like this, you know? Yeah.
Well, you know, especially as a spirit, they don't necessarily have in this spirit's case, there's not going to be an understanding of, I'm a spirit. This, you know,
right?
It's like, why are people in my apartment now?
Yes.
Right? And it's like, why are people, you know, sending energy to get rid of me? You know, this is my space.
Yeah.
You know, if, you know, squatters just came into your house, you'd be pissed off too and start throwing plates off the damn shelves.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's literally that.
Absolutely.
It's literally that. So sometimes, you know, things just take time.
Yeah.
You know, you have to connect to these things or even just let them be. And like you're doing, you know, boundaries like, please go to the living room. I'm trying to sleep, you know.
Right. Like, I'm not like, I banish you from this place, but like, hey, just hang in the other room, please. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening to that. Back to you. I've got some more questions for you. Have you ever had a specific experience during a sort of energetic work session or ritual that you couldn't explain, something that felt like super, like truly supernatural?
Yeah, I don't really know, but I would say one of my freakier moments. Do you remember when I did Reiki for you when I was in Memphis? It was like one of the very first times.
Yes, it was from PCOS, yeah.
And I like, you know, I just learned Reiki, you know, and it was real cute, you know, do the symbols and this and this. And so I did some of that for you. And then I started doing like just kind of really strange stuff. Okay. And I had no explanation of why I was doing it. I was like clawing and like, I think I was like doing stuff on my legs. I did like a bunch of like just unusual stuff where I was like, it was not Reiki, right?
Okay.
And so I was like, that was kind of weird. And like, right as I was getting ready to text you, you texted me. You're like, I felt this in my legs. And I was like, what? You know, like.
Wait, what? I don't think you told me that.
No, like, I don't know. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. But like, all the weird stuff that I did, you then told me how you were basically like feeling it and you felt this go away and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was like, I guess Reiki is really real. Because, you know, I was new at it, so I didn't really know how effective it would be.
Oh my gosh. Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah. It was like right when I was first starting out Reiki.
Yeah, that was
I was like, I was like stomping on the ground and stuff, and you were like, my legs were, and I was like, oh, my legs. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, I think. That's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Wait, that's so cool. Okay. I love that. Okay. Uh, how do you, if at all, how do you differentiate between your intuition and your external spiritual communication?
Sometimes it's difficult. It just really is. But as long as I feel that it's something that will benefit me or is for my good, I just maybe won't even care.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like my higher self or a spirit guide or an angel, you know,
Yeah.
I can definitely know when it's something not within my community or my energy, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I reject that. I rebuke
Yeah.
that. But if it's like, oh, maybe this is my higher self, maybe this is, a spirit guide. As long
Sure.
as it's, a energy I'm comfortable or like feel familiar enough with, I'll accept it.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool to know, especially when it comes to like navigating your own inner thought and inner monologue, and then
Hmm.
knowing other thoughts and messages that come in. It sounds like too, um, knowing it is fueling your higher purpose, or like what you're meant to
Hmm.
be doing, and you feel safe.
Yeah. I do have some ability of clairaudience, but I'm
Yeah.
more so clairsentience.
Okay.
So I some beings' voices will be a different voice in my head,
Uh-huh.
but usually I just kind of have like a single tone, and it's like whether it's my higher self or an angel or whatever, it's like okay, this is just spiritual guidance. That's good for me, so I know that. Maybe
Okay.
if I'm like specifically like, oh, I want to hear from Father Ra, he comes like his energy is different and his voice is different. It'll pop up in my head different,
Right.
compared to just like my kind of regular everyday spiritual guidance.
Okay. That's very cool.
But I don't at least anymore really like hear. When I was younger, I would like hear stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Like people talking in your ears.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Okay. Have you ever encountered like resistance, energetic, spiritual, or emotional, when you're kind of working with someone spiritually? And if so, how did you navigate it?
yeah, especially when I was like doing reading and stuff, you just get some people just cut off from them own selves. There
Oh,
are people who come to get readings. They don't even want a reading. They want to hear a very specific sentence, and if it's
oh,
not that, it's just So I'm like,
wow.
get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. What are
Like
you here
you
for?
Yeah, like you're not even open to like get a real message. I'm not gonna tell you to go back to your ugly ass boyfriend, like no, I'm not gonna say those words for you.
Yeah.
See, I have so when that's why I don't even really like to do some spiritual stuff in person anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes the people that come to is a melting pot, and the
Uh-huh.
melting pot be annoying. It's like I don't want to deal with this. Like
Yeah.
you're not even open. Goodbye. Get out of here.
Yeah. Get out of
So
here.
yeah, yeah. When it comes to stuff like that, it's like okay, goodbye. Just release it.
Yeah, God. There was this one girl I did a reading for a couple years
Hmm.
ago, and she like really wanted to be friends, and her energy was kind of weird. And anyway, I did a reading for her, and her
Mm.
whole ancestral team was like so with her. Like it was actually
Mm.
crazy. Like specifically her grandma was with her. And
Mm.
she was asking about like her job and this guy she was dating who was like 10 years younger than her and treating her like
Mm.
trash. And
Mm.
like her grandma was literally yelling in Korean, like at her and at me, like, tell her not to go back to him, tell her to go back to school.
Mm.
She has to finish her degree. She has to do this. And I literally had to be
Mm.
like, okay, like, hold on. Like, hold on. And the whole time the woman was like crying, and she was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be with him. And I'm like, okay, you're here
Oh my
asking for my
god.
advice, and like I'm giving you a
Yeah.
reading, and your grandma is also like reinforcing what the cards are saying. Like, girl, come on, get it together.
Oh. Yeah, that's why some people they just want to hear what they want to hear and not
Yeah.
necessarily the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Or have any other potential outcomes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So uh
Hmm.
how do intention and belief play a role in the effectiveness of healing or any magical or spiritual work?
Its intention is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You can have all the crystals in the world, you can have all the Reiki in the world, but if you don't believe in it, it's not going to have any kind of effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not,
Yeah.
and people, well, I bought a lottery ticket and I really believed, but do you believe that you're worthy of money? Do you believe you can have a good life? If you have
Yes.
so many subconscious beliefs of stuff you can't do, it doesn't matter how much conscious stuff you do,
Yeah.
it's not gonna manifest at the end of the day,
God,
unfortunately.
that's so true. Yeah, you were one of the first people to tell me too, like, stop saying you're broke. Like, stop. Like,
Oh,
and I was like, but I am. I have no money. I never have money. And you're like, girl, stop saying that. And like, granted, like, my finances maybe have not changed stupendously, but I look at money and wealth in such a different way now that I have the
mm,
last few years, which is just like, hey, I'll always make it. I'll always be okay. And one day I'm going to have something great,
mm,
you know? And like, I've
mm,
always had food, I've always had shelter, and I'm incredibly grateful
mhm.
and I'm incredibly lucky for that, you know? And
Yeah.
like, there's only growth. It's only growth mentality. And I still have a lot of work to do in terms of like that. But for my whole
Mhm.
life, because I had a mother who was always like, we're poor, we're poor, we're so poor,
Yeah.
you know? So I was like, I'm poor. And you're like, stop saying that.
Yeah, we just inherit so much stuff from families, parents, society,
Yeah.
especially phrases. And I had a friend who's much more woo-woo than me, almost to the point that I find them annoying. You know, living in Memphis, we would have power outages because of a damn tornado and
Right.
a thunderstorm or whatever. And I was like, "Oh, we don't have any power right now." And she was like, "That's intentional. They
Okay.
want you." But why do we say that in America? I don't have any power. I'm
Yeah.
sure all across the world you say, the electricity's out or
Right.
something, normal.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, she's actually right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just something as little as that.
Yeah.
That's a common phrase. Oh, the power's out. We don't have any power.
Right. That's very true.
It's
Like,
like,
no, the electricity is off. We're just going to use candles tonight. Like, those different ways.
yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting on the non woo woo side of this, right? Jordan and I have been talking a lot about how, especially as adults, the words we
Hmm.
choose are important. And
Yes.
no matter what you say, if it's just like, oh, I just said it though, it's like, it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes from a very, you know, specific part of us. And so yeah, be intentional about the words we use, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a silly question. I'm gonna skip that.
No, what's the silly question?
I feel like it's everything we've already talked about, but it's just do you think some people are naturally more attuned to spiritual or paranormal energies, or can everyone access that realm with practice?
With with prac I'm gonna be honest, Courtney, the answer is no, actually. There are
Really?
some people born without, when you're like, I don't know, a 12th generational Catholic,
Sure.
you know, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I always talk
Please
about
do.
epigenetics,
Yeah.
the
Oh, you
study
do.
of
I love it.
genetics. Yes, and how behaviors can be inherited.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 12th generational Catholic who, and no one believed, let's say they didn't even believe in the saints, right? They didn't believe in none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Your biology and your physiology is going to be so shut down from that kind of stuff. To where if you don't
Wow.
want to even, it's not even going to be in your brain for like, I wonder if that's not even going to be within you. Then
That's
it's
a great
socially not
point.
going to be within you because of how your family is.
Yeah.
So there are some people they gonna have to reincarnate and come back. They ain't got a chance in this
Right.
lifetime. They just truly don't.
That's a great, great, great point. And that's something I had never thought of with epigenetics in terms of spiritualism, right? I think about it in terms of genetics
Mm-hmm.
and physical things, but not as
Mm-hmm.
much how our brains and physiology and spiritualism plays into that. And I think the reason I skipped it too is because so many people who are even a little bit woo woo, and I used
Mm-hmm.
to feel resistant towards it as well, but I felt like that carried a sense of arrogance. But like, this whole thing of like anyone can be psychic, like you just have to like tune
Mm-hmm.
in or practice enough. But you're kind of right. It's like there is a whole broad spectrum of people that would have an incredibly challenging time trying to tune in and connect with something beyond what is been passed down to them or what they've grown up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, cool. Thank you for going back to that. That was
Yeah.
cool to hear that. Have you ever received a message or a vision during a session that like really surprised you, whether it was about yourself or somebody else?
I had this amazing dream when I lived in LA. I can't even remember all of it, but I still always have this like key frame in my mind. Like my spirit guides, they came down. I don't even know exactly what we were talking about, but they explained like everything to me. And it was with the most amazing visuals you could think of. Some like, Marvel quality visuals with like
Nice.
these like turning things, and things were golden, and it was like insane. I woke up, and immediately forgot like almost all of it. But I still like have this like key frame of like these golden things spinning, and they were like, it was like a pop-up thing explaining like different. I was just like, what even is happening? But yeah,
Wow.
hmm
Okay, well then that might answer the next question, but maybe not. But the next question is, what's one magical moment, quote unquote, from your journey that you return to when you need inspiration or affirmation?
I won't go into it too much just because it's too personal, but I had a
Sure.
very insane and amazing dream when I lived in Memphis. But okay, see, so it's actually funny. This dream actually does have Beyonce in it, which is why I don't want to talk about it.
That's
So I don't
okay.
want to sound about it like a crazy fangirl. But I had a dream that, yeah, I got invited to like this party, and then like Beyonce herself gave me a reading. I was like,
Wow.
avoid these things. You see, like, she just went through. And so, anyways, then her and the other lady, one got at my head and one got at my feet, and they were doing this ritual on me. And they said something. They're like, and now when you breathe in, like you'll be done. And so in the real world, I woke up from the dream and I had no breath in my body at all. Like
Oh,
my lungs were completely empty. So I had to breathe in really deeply, right?
yeah.
And then I literally like I physically heard like a ding,
Oh.
and I heard congratulations. You are now yourself.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, that's so
Yeah.
sick.
And so that's why I go by Lily Bennu now, because like I literally like I went through some kind of a change. I was like, oh, I'm not my old self anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was curious about that as well. So that's interesting. That was kind of the moment you think that you were like, okay, here I am. This is new. Like after that dream.
hmm
Okay. That's so
yeah,
cool.
I know.
All right, I have like kind of one more question, but there's kind of multi-parts, so take it as you will.
hmm
It is, do you think our current world is becoming more open to energy work and the mystical, or is there still resistance? And the second part of the question is, what advice do you have for the world in terms of this energy work?
So the answer is, of course, yes and no. Yes, the world is becoming much more open, and I would just call it more so a remembrance.
Mm,
Not even like, oh, this is something new. People are just like, yeah, no, we used to be like this.
right.
This used to be normal. And of course, yes, there is still resistance. That 12th generational Catholic is not going to want to be accepting of this stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But then they might have a friend who's like, well, you could at least pray to the saints, and that might be the beginning of something in 3 generations. They have a woo-woo grandchild,
Mm-hmm.
so my true suggestion for everyone is something we kind of talked about, and that is that time is relative. We have more time than we think we do, but we are also running out of time at the same time. And you're like, Lily, wait, you're being contradicting. Sometimes things come to a culmination point, and it's, we're at a point now where it's like, as a collective, we really need to start deciding how we are going to continue as a society.
Yeah.
Because obviously stuff is not okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are seeing that and saying that and not
Right.
accepting it. So that's why I said, like, I think even though as ugly as the world is right now, we have never been in a better space. There is I don't know what to call him. There's this guy, he channels a being called Cryon.
Okay.
Um and And I mean, this is from the 80s, Courtney. This is before we were
Okay.
even born.
Okay.
Yeah. But he said, Crime talked about like, there's going to come a point in time where there can't be any more secrets, and
Mhm.
someone in China can talk to someone in America and someone in Peru. He's talking about the internet,
Yeah.
right?
That's funny, yeah.
Which might seem silly to us now, but there cannot be secrets anymore, Courtney. When when TikTok went down and everyone went on the Red Note app,
Yeah.
and people are like, "Oh, this is a Chinese propaganda. Oh, this is an American propaganda." Right? People who have not talked in generations, these two
Yeah.
people were able to talk and communicate, and there was no beef. It was, oh, both of our sides are saying stuff or whatever, but at the end of the day, we're all human. Look at our cats.
Right.
Everyone's
Yeah.
like, look at my cat.
Yeah.
So as much division as there is projected, it of course exists, but it's also a distraction from the stuff that's uniting us.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the movie Sinners. This might be kind of a strange example, but it's a black film, obviously. It's part majority black. White people loving it, Asians loving it, Hispanics loving it. Have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it this Wednesday, I think.
Totally go see it. So, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it or whatever, but there's the most important scene in that movie where the main character, calls down the ancestors of everyone in the space. Once you see it, you'll be like, oh my God, and it's the catalyst point in the movie. But I've seen so many different people on TikTok just talking about how that scene changed them in that moment, made them
Wow.
think about their own ancestors, made them research where they came from, you know. So, we're at a point where art is reflecting the changes we're going through. People are talking about magic and all of this, Avatar, The Last Airbender kind of stuff. And even in anime, the idea of spirituality or whatever else is, I don't even know so many of the current shows, but, these
Yeah.
ideas are becoming more prominent for a reason. It's because it's reflecting humanity's current consciousness.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got an orange turd for a president. A lot of people don't like him.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'm gonna say something so unpopular, and I'm not trying to be a shock jockey. We need to have someone terrible. Otherwise we'll never fix the terribleness.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is getting at a real high level of spirituality, which, shit I don't even like to say, because I don't like that man.
No, but I
If he
understand
was-
what you're saying. Like, hey, this is literally forcing us. He's taking away insurance, rights, healthcare coverage, arts, everything. Like, they're going to just keep taking things away until we figure out how to change the system that we're in.
How to change the system that we're working in. And especially for those of us who are politically opposed to us,
Right.
it's like, when are you going to start seeing everyone else as another person?
But even to the point where it's taking, capitalism to affect them, to be like, oh, maybe this is bad, of like tariffs and issues affecting farmers who voted for him, all these other things. It's like, well, it sucks. That's what it took. But like, at least we're all trying to come to the conversation. We can all try to start coming to the table eventually. Maybe, I don't know,
Maybe. Everyone thought that the great unifier for humanity would be aliens, right? That aliens would come and invade us, and then we would have
Right.
no
choice but to.
I hate to say it, Orange Turd is the alien. He has united the world against us, and he is uniting America against him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, especially in America, part of America's karmic lesson is learning the hard way.
Yeah.
It just is,
Mhm.
and so we are learning the hard way, and it's unfortunately affecting those of us who did not want to have to do that.
Right.
And that's something else is, I don't ever want to talk to a Republican. They're the most annoying people to me.
Yeah.
We have to start getting over that, though, because at the end of the day, we're all human.
Absolutely.
Even, as lame as that is to say, so they're starting to see, oh, I need these other people. We're starting to see, we need to start talking to these other people so we could change things, so it's forcing conversation. It's forcing critical thinking, which is something they don't want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So all that to say is that, even as bad as stuff is right now, this is, the splinting of the leg, the pouring of the peroxide on the gangrene.
That's a great
It
way.
is
Yeah.
ugly and it is uncomfortable, but that's what healing is. Healing is not all cute and wearing pink and holding your rose quartz crystals like the white girls
Yeah,
from Target
no.
try to make it seem like.
Yeah.
Healing's very ugly.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. Yeah, it's fun. It's so funny. That's Jordan. I keep saying we're all in the goop right now. Like we're just in the goop, you know, like things are hopefully like we have optimism. You know, we have a lot of fear, honestly, as well. But like overall, it's like I feel like we're in the goop of this healing stage, and it's bloody and pussy and nasty. But like it's gotta happen to heal, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I said too that this will take time. You know, I think probably by the time we're like in our 90s, things will be okay. But that's a scary
it's
thought.
gonna take that long? I know, probably.
You know,
like 50
it'll
years.
take, you know, a couple generations to get, you know, to a very good place.
Sure.
We honestly may not live to see it.
I know, right?
But the point is that we're sowing the seeds of it. And so that's, you know, that's how rich people stay afloat. Rich people aren't planning week to week or month to month. They plan by generations.
Wow.
They took that power away from us by keeping us poor.
That's crazy. Yeah.
You know? So we need to start thinking on a generational level. Okay, you know, by the time me and you are, 40, let's get our rights back to abortion. Let's get our rights back to this. By the time me and you are in our 70s, let's hope that people are being less religious and more spiritual. No, let's hope by the time we're 90, this stuff will be within teaching curriculums and blah, blah, blah. You know, we have to start thinking like that.
Yeah.
Which, you know, admittedly is very difficult when people are living paycheck to paycheck, can't get a job and whatever else.
Yeah.
But we have to start fighting against some of these preconditions made against us so that we can make it nice for ourselves and for, you know, the future generations.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm that was kind of a tangent, but I think that's great advice for the world right now, spiritually, on any level.
It is. People say that's political. That's not spiritual. Politics are spiritual.
Yeah, politics
govern our entire life.
Yes, literally.
Politics are very spiritual.
Welcome to the world we're living in right now. Yeah.
Yes, you know, so I know a lot of people, they like to keep woo-woo and politics separate, but, you know,
it's all
everything is divine. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, wait, sorry. So this is my other story I needed to tell you because it was so crazy, and this happened pretty recently. I don't know if you remember, but when we were hanging out all the time, and I keep saying this like if this is still a part of the podcast for the listeners, this was like close to a decade ago at this point. I feel like close to 8 to 10 years ago, and we were hanging out, and I was talking about past life stuff, and I was telling you and Gabby about like these dreams that I'd have, or these memories I'd have as a little kid of being like a blonde girl in a blue dress looking out the window of like almost a castle and seeing like very royal people or guards and things like that, and being like, it sounds so like shitty to be like, I was a princess, but like, you know, like what is that? And we did some work on it. We were like, I don't know. So anyway, on an episode on the podcast, I interviewed my grandma, who's also like very into all the, you know, all the stuff. But she started talking about our ancestry, Lily, and one of the ancestral lines. And I was like, what? And she's like, you know, we were related to a Duke of Scotland. And I was like, what? Whatever. And as she's talking, I'm Googling, and like my blood runs cold because I see that this Duke, Sir Robert Drake or Sir Robert something, owned this castle on the sea looking over a cliff that was that fucking castle. And not only that, but there was a painted portrait of his granddaughter and her 2 children, which were 2 little children with blonde hair and curls in blue satin dresses.
Oh my goodness. You were having like an ancestral recall.
Is that what that is? Was it not me? Was I just seeing my ancestors?
So that's something you have to discern for yourself.
Okay.
In some African spiritualities, the thought is that you do continuously reincarnate into your family until you like, you know, heal whatever's going on in your family line. But you know, I don't think that's true for everyone. So Yeah,
But
it could be your
crazy.
ancestors trying to tell you something, or
Uh-huh.
maybe, it does happen. Because even, one of the reasons I was so adamant on having a kid is because from Gabby to this reader and that reader, everyone told me my son is going to be my great grandpa reincarnated.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
So I was like, I have to birth my great grandpa. Like I was like, I have to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
So I don't know, or like maybe she's trying to tell, it can be something simple like she likes that blue dress and that's who your daughter is going to be, whether adopted or had by you or whatever. She would just be like,
Whoa.
"Mommy, I really want a blue dress again."
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, crazy, right? That like I literally saw
that
the
is.
imagery and the castle that I used to dream about like through Wikipedia
Mm-hmm.
while studying this person that I had never even heard about. And my grandma was like, "Yeah, that
Yeah.
was our ancestor." And I was like, "Yeah, right. Oh my god."
Crazy Granny knew some stuff.
Crazy Granny knew some stuff. Okay, and my
Mm.
last thing I want to ask you about, because this just happened recently, and my spirit guide's like, tell her, tell her, tell her, tell her. And I don't know
Mm.
why. It seems like such a silly thing, but I woke
Mm.
up and it was kind of like that point between of like waking and sleeping. This was 2 weeks ago. This was after
Mm-hmm.
the guy pulled the gun on the train. So it had been a kind of traumatic week,
Mm.
but I woke up and I don't usually like believe in or go for all of like the angel stuff technically. Like I believe in
Mm.
angels, but I don't like work with them necessarily as like religious archetypes. Like people call upon them as like deities and angels and work with them and things like that. It's just not something I usually go for. But there
Mm.
was like an angel like floating above my bed, and it
Mm.
was like blonde, and I was like, okay. And it had like big white wings and like white robes and white clothes, and it had this like
Mm.
big coin, like a gold coin with a red
Mm.
heart on it. And it was like certainly non-binary. Like I don't know if it was a male or female. I don't even think that was like a thing. But
Mm.
it like reached down and like handed the coin to me, and I was like, "Oh, is this for like the spirits that I see to help them?" And it was like, "No, it's for you." And I was like,
Mm.
"It's for me." And it was like, "Yeah, take it." And it like inserted into my chest like a coin slot almost. And it was like
Mm.
and it said, "You'll know when you need it. You'll use it when you need it."
Oh my God.
Like, what the fuck was that? It was just, I just left very confused. Like, it was a comforting experience, but also, like, that was weird, you know?
That is so amazing, Courtney.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I can't even tell you what it means, but the fact that you even saw an angel, the fact that you even saw an angel in itself, they don't really kind of show themselves to people, let
Wait,
alone give people
really?
stuff.
Wait, really? Okay, well, it could have just been, like I said, it was between wake and sleep. It could have just been like a dream, maybe, but no, you don't
Even if
think.
it was a dream, when you dream, you're in the spiritual and the astral realm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but you think it was a positive thing? I mean, it felt positive, but okay.
Did you look up like angel, coin, red heart?
No, I guess I should do a quick do a quick look into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm like trying to think in my head if any angel pops up. I don't think it's necessarily a specific angel,
Yeah.
but you might. What I'm hearing is you might see, like, even just putting that in, you might see like a oracle card of it to kind of give you more
Oh,
context.
interesting.
Yeah, like
Okay.
maybe like in the Google search you'd be like, oh, okay, oh, look, this is that, and
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up because I am curious. Okay, I'm seeing
hmm
a lot of coins with angels on them. Whoa, wait. Oh wait, that's so funny. I see like a there's like a coin with a red heart that's gold with angel wings, and it's a poker angel. It's like a chip coin for poker. Should I go? Maybe that's the sign I need to hit the casino.
maybe, yeah, or get a lottery ticket or something.
That's that's what we were joking about today, Jordan. I was like, we should get it's 5/5/25. Should we get a lottery ticket? And he was like, maybe we
Mm,
should do it tonight. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe we're circling back to
yeah,
it.
and then ask,
And then you get a portion of the
then
cut because you
oh,
recommended it.
and then yeah, then just put the ticket to your heart and ask that coin to activate.
Wait, that's a great idea. Okay.
hmm
Um
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry. Thanks for listening to my rambling on. Thanks for going over time as well. Is there any any other stories, any other advice, anything you want to share for the listeners and or for me, Courtney?
So it's actually funny. I was like, what are we going to talk about? So can we actually talk about that doll, Annabelle?
Oh yeah, for sure. You like wanted to talk about it, yeah.
So I don't know if you saw, but like they're taking the doll on a tour across the country.
Wait, really?
Girl, you got to get back on TikTok. Shit has been crazy.
I am on TikTok, but I haven't seen Annabelle on tour.
Oh, yeah. So, I have not seen the movie. I'm not really a horror movie person. I get like too terrified.
Okay.
But so I know of the Annabelle franchise. I didn't even know that it was based on like a real life doll.
Yeah.
Until TikTok.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that lady who died, who had it last, the Warren lady, was like, keep it in this box forever and never move it.
Right.
And they're like, we're going to go on a national tour.
Jesus Christ.
And everyone was like, why? So they took the doll to New Orleans. This is like, 1 or 2 weeks ago. An old plantation burned down. And this is an active plantation where like they were having weddings and stuff at the plantation.
Oh my God.
It burned down to the fucking ground, Courtney.
Wait, that's kind of hilarious though, right? Like
no, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The Voodoo Queen's house burned down. Marie Laveau.
Oh no. Oh wait, no, but that house was I'm sorry, continue. Let me not interrupt you.
I guess I don't know, that it got sold to someone else or whatever, but her house burned down and 11 inmates escaped from a prison down there. And they were all Geminis.
Oh, no.
And it just makes it scarier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so everyone was like, please take that doll the fuck back to its house. Like, everyone was like, please, we don't need any more of this. So then they took it somewhere else, and in transit in between where they were going, this like army guy, his house burned down. And he's like in Orange Turd's current administration.
Okay. Wow.
And yeah, no. So and some other things have also burned down too. The point is, and then like there was where was it? Somewhere in the South there was a Confederate museum. For the Confederacy.
Yeah.
A lightning hit the tree, and the tree smashed the entire museum.
Oh my God.
And Annabelle had like just passed by there. So low key, we're like, is Annabelle working with the ancestors?
I was gonna say, like, is Annabelle like a little liberal, like brat queen? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, like she wanted her Kamala Summer and she didn't get it. And now she's mad.
Let's continue the tour of Annabelle. It sounds like maybe.
And everyone was like, please take her to Washington, D.C.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Right? And so they're planning, I think they added a tour stop.
Oh my God.
And they're going to take her there.
Wait, that's like so close to me. Part of me wants to go, and then part of me is like, I also don't want to die in a fire though.
Right? There's been a lot of fires happening. So this is the thing. So I immediately was like, first of all, the Annabelle doll in the movies is completely terrifying.
Yeah.
Then when I see real life Annabelle, it's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah.
I was like, Raggedy Ann is the homie.
I know.
I was like, what's really going on? So then I was like having weird stuff happening and feeling fearful. And I was like, I don't like this.
Oh, shit.
But I was like, I don't even know if that doll is really evil or what's going on.
Yeah.
So the universe answered my question today. I was like, go on, universe. So long story short, the lady whose mom gave Annabelle the doll said like little stuff happened, right? She would be in one room. Then when they came back, she'd be in a different room.
Yeah.
They would cross her little doll legs. Then they would be uncrossed. Stuff that's, I don't think, malevolent in any way. Now, supposedly her boyfriend came in and was like, fuck this doll, and threw it across the room or something.
Oh.
And he woke up supposedly being choked by the doll.
Oh.
Right? But it's like, don't start none, won't be none. Right? That's how I feel about that.
Right, yeah.
So the nurse lady who was given the doll by her mom, talked to several mediums,
Mm-hmm.
and they all told her the same story of this is like a little girl spirit who chose to be in the doll because she wanted to be comforted and hugged and loved and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Right? But this is the 70s, so I guess I don't know what happened. So she called the people who had the doll the Warrens. Turns out they're complete and total frauds.
Oh, yeah, the Warrens suck.
You know, and I didn't know that, right? So now I'm learning like I have no reason to be afraid of this doll because they were literally fraudsters. You know, they said that they would like paint people's houses and put a spirit, you know, on the lawn or something and be like, yo, shit is haunted. Give us money to
Yes.
stop the haunting.
Also, Mr.
Like,
Warren
what?
was like a perverted predator. You know, he would like literally date 19-year-olds
He
and stuff.
kidnapped that girl.
Yes.
The
No.
girl was living with them and got pregnant and had to get a
Yes.
delete the fetus.
Yeah.
I was like, and then the wife knew the whole time.
I know. It's like weird religion stuff. Always like that. However they want to justify it. These Christians and Catholics.
You know, so now I feel really bad for the doll because, you know, if what those other mediums said is true and this is just some little spirit who wanted attention, you know, especially a little kid, you know, I would completely understand that. Who wants to be a little kid and go on and reincarnate?
Yeah.
You know, then it's like, oh my God, now this poor doll has been trapped in this box in this weird occult museum.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, so I was like, you know what? You burn all the fucking plantations you want. I don't care. We accept your bad behavior. But I felt good. I was like, oh, okay. I was being silly. I don't need to be in fear of this.
Yes.
But also, you know, it's like, once again, what we talked about early, don't escalate shit.
Right.
The Warren should have never got that doll.
No.
That doll probably doesn't need to be in no damn box with the cross on it and all that extra stuff they have on it.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
It's like y'all created an issue that didn't exist.
Yes. Like so many like white people who think they know spiritually what's best. And
yeah,
it's literally a big part of like why I'm doing this show, like as like a white person who can see ghosts, because I'm like, I don't know what to do and I don't want to think that I know what to do, so let me talk to everybody about everything so I can just try to do the best I can instead of like being like, I'm gonna send these ghosts to the light. It's like, well, maybe sometimes, maybe not, I don't know, but like, yeah, or like locking up quote unquote haunted evil dolls in boxes. It's like, well, that's so sad. Like, yeah, maybe she was just a little girl who wanted to, be loved. Yeah,
you know. And like, if that, you know, I would hope that hopefully that spirit left already.
Yeah,
you know, because like, who wants to be trapped in a box for 3 decades by a crazy lady?
Yeah,
by a crazy couple.
Maybe it's just been retaken by just like a crazy arsonist spirit, and like we're not mad about it, you know.
You know, or it's acting out because it was trapped. You know, it's like, as long as you keep burning plantations, you really don't mind.
We don't mind, yeah.
Go to the White House. That's the biggest plantation of them all. Annabelle for 2028.
Annabelle 2028. She's got my vote. She's got my vote.
Yeah, but I just thought that was so funny. Like, everywhere she's gone, like, stuff has been burning up and random stuff has been happening.
The Annabelle trail. We got to keep tabs on this and also get ready for a lot of Annabelle memes because I'm going to be looking into this. This is going to get fun.
Yeah. So I think supposedly she's going to, she's actually going to Chicago next June 1st, and I'm going to be in Chicago June 6th for Kendrick Lamar.
Oh.
I'm like, please don't burn down the stadium.
Oh, it sounds like she's going to be there. Like, watch you look to your left and she's like, they're not like us. They're not like us.
Exactly. Man, if I see Annabelle crip walking, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to check out. I got to go take a nap.
You should like dress like Annabelle, have like an Annabelle themed outfit for the concert.
I don't know. What are Raggedy Ann and Andy? Aren't they like sailors?
It's kind of like a sailor outfit. Yeah, it's like red and white stripes with like a little dress. I mean, it's kind of cute, honestly. I feel like you could kind of rock it.
That's why when I saw it, I was like, how is this little Raggedy Ann doll evil? It immediately didn't even make sense.
Yeah. The first time I saw that as well, I was like, what? But now the more you think about it, it's like, well, I don't know. But yeah,
It's
those.
probably just a regular ass doll at this point.
Well, thank you for bringing up the Annabelle stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that you had that was on your mind or on your For You page?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. I love that. I love the Annabelle stuff. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for your time. It was so good to see you. And come on anytime. If anything fun or supernatural or spiritual happens and you want to chat, I love to chat. I also just love you, so I love to chat with you. So,
Yeah.
okay, my love. We'll have a beautiful night. Have so much fun in Chicago.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Remember, you are not alone if you've ever heard a bump in the night or caught something out of the corner of your eye. There are countless others who experience things they can't explain. And this podcast is your safe place to listen and share. Also, I want to remind everyone that this show is for entertainment purposes. I am not a professional paranormal investigator. I did not go to school to study this. I can only speak about my firsthand experiences. And with that, I'd love to mark the importance of spiritual inclusion. Your thoughts, ideas, and theories about the other side are welcome. And we know that so much of our common knowledge and perception about the paranormal stems from historical and cultural experiences. So we are open to your knowledge and understanding of things that we may be ignorant about or not fully understand. Let's learn and grow together. Stay spooky, and we'll see you next time. Hey, ghoul friends! Got a spooky story to share? Well, I want to hear about your haunts. Whether you've seen a ghost or something unexplainable, send your supernatural experiences to us at jauntyhaunts@gmail.com. That's JAUNTYHAUNTS@gmail.com. Or DM us on Instagram at jauntyhaunts.pod. That's jauntyhaunts.pod. You can also find us on TikTok and YouTube under Jaunty Haunts Podcast. I want to hear from you.